Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cyclical Investors Club YouTube channel. My name is Corey Kramer. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Delta Airlines stock, but I'm also going to take a look at all the U.S. airlines and just talk about airline stocks in general, because otherwise this would be a very short video. If you haven't watched my channel before, I specialize in cyclical stocks like airlines, are one of the things I kind of specialize in. However, because of the pandemic and because of just kind of the strange way things have played out, airlines haven't been particularly investable from my point of view lately. So it's a little, it's a little tricky to kind of talk about them and invest in them. As always, this is not individual investing advice. This is just how I analyze stocks. So let's just take a quick look at Delta here. This one came in by request down in the comments section of one of my other videos. If you have a request you'd like me to take a look at, you can put it down in the comments and I'll eventually get it on the whiteboard behind me and I will make a video. If it's a stock that's in the S&P 500 like the airlines, I post those on YouTube for free, and the rest I post over on Patreon. And I do have a free tier level of Patreon now, along with a $5 tier. You can check those out down in the description. And then I have a full service Cyclical Investors Club over on Seeking Alpha. If you join Patreon, you can get a big discount if you ever decide to join the full service. So airlines, so deep cyclical businesses can do, now the COVID thing was kind of a special case, but we can see that earnings fell very deeply during that time, but they also fell very deeply during the Great Recession. The earnings are represented by this dark green area in the fast graph here. So this is a deeply cyclical business. The thing is, airlines have a lot of overhead costs that are relatively fixed. You think like the cost of a plane, or really it costs similar amount to fly a plane that's like half full compared to like full, other than maybe the weight differences. So each empty seat on an airline is going to cost them money relative to the cost that it takes to fly and operate the plane and have pilots and flight attendants and all that stuff. So the problem is when the economy slows down or people don't fly as much for some reason, the costs of operating the business stay similar, but the revenue that comes in from the customers goes down. And that's how you get these big earnings cycles. So the thing is with the airlines, I really like to have like 2 full down cycles. And I suppose if you count COVID, we now have 2 full down cycles. But I really like to have a longer history that goes back before the Great Recession. And most of these airlines went bankrupt. Most airlines do go bankrupt specifically because, so if you look at United, they start about the same time, have a very similar pattern. American Airlines, even less of a history, right? And kind of a similar pattern where they lost money, except for they haven't recovered as fast. I'm not sure. Alaskan Air, we can take a look. I don't usually track this one. This is pretty similar though. We have a deep decline, didn't go quite as negative here. And then they got hit again with COVID from earnings there. But they were actually declining before that, right? So airlines, I'm generally reluctant to invest in just because most of the time they eventually go bankrupt. Now, Southwest is one of the exceptions. They have a very long history. I've tracked them for a long time. But they're definitely going through some struggles right now beyond COVID. You can see how their earnings really haven't recovered. The Boeing issues are definitely affecting them. And then they also have just internal issues with the way their company is structured, their lack of innovation over the past several years. But I have a video out already where I shared the price that I would be willing to buy it. I kind of like buying into this negativity with a deep cyclical like this because, one, it's still cheap. It's almost as cheap as it was in the heart of COVID. And so if they ever do manage to right this ship, it should perform and give me really good returns. Still pretty risky, I would say, but until COVID, they had remained profitable every single year. So it's at least a base to work from that I think has some promise where they might be able to do it over some time if you buy it cheap enough. The only airline I've actually ever owned is Ryanair. I'm trying to think what the ADR is. There it is. This is the ADR for US ADR. So I bought it before the pandemic, I think down in here somewhere, and sold for a pretty good profit right at the beginning of the pandemic in February before everything fell off a cliff, like right in here. So I ended up doing really well with it. It actually came back quite strong, much stronger than the stock price did anyway, and eventually earnings followed than I expected. So I didn't get a chance to buy it cheaper. But it's doing pretty well. I would be willing to buy this one too if it was like 50% off its highs. So I think Ryanair and Southwest, because of their history of being profitable through most time periods that weren't COVID, are the two that I like the most as potential investments. I like Ryanair the most, hands down, out of any airline. But I would want to get it at it. I almost bought it again right down here. So I would be willing to buy it again if I got the right price. And I feel better about it than Southwest just because Ryanair's run better than Southwest. I think Southwest needs to make some changes, but I think they're probably realizing that they need to do that. So we'll see how it works out. And when things are going wonderfully, that's not when you get the cheap stock prices. So I don't know, what are we trading at? Let's just say we got it. We were able to get it down here again, which we almost were. You could get 150% return if it returns to its all-time highs. So you can wait 5 years, and still get a really good return if it takes that long. So that would be my thinking there. Now, in terms of Delta, which is the actual airline that I got asked about, I mean, things look really good. The earnings have fully recovered. They're probably going to be fine. If anything, when I hear people complain, it's that it's too busy, like their lounges are too busy and stuff. So, I mean, I think they're going to do fine. But if you look at the stock price, it's basically right where it was pre-pandemic. So this looks like kind of almost a steady state type stock price, like this $50 range. But it never really, since 2015, it hasn't really produced a lot of extra profits when you buy it at that price. So it's probably pretty safe here as long as nothing else happens like major, but it's probably not going to produce like really great returns for an investor. So that's kind of what I think just looking at it here. And I actually, like United is actually the airline I usually fly if I fly a normal airline. They're kind of similar. They're trailing a little bit more in terms of the stock price coming back to pre-pandemic levels. But again, there just isn't like a solid enough history that I feel confident in here, even though I really like United as an airline. As an investor, it's kind of just an avoid for me. So that's kind of what I think. And then I think American looks pretty rough still. So yeah, this one will definitely be an avoid for me. I mean, just a general stagnant to downtrend in the stock price, and the earnings haven't recovered yet. So Delta looks like the strongest airline, but the stock price has already, Delta and Ryan, but the stock price has already reflected that. So that would be my quick take on Delta. Southwest is it's like within 15%, I think, of my buy price. So I might be buying it kind of reluctantly a little bit, but just because I think the Boeing issues they have all Boeing jets. So I think they're even all 737s. So it's going to be hard for them to, if these jets really take more maintenance and everything, even if they get better fuel mileage, that's going to hurt Southwest more than it's going to hurt airlines with more flexibility. We saw United kind of shifting away and going more toward Airbus. So, whereas Southwest can't do that. So it's certainly a risk, but the stock price will hopefully reflect it if I get it cheap enough. and then you just have to kind of cross your fingers and hope that a few of the things kind of shift in your favor over the next. Also, I think honestly, like a lot of people are flying internationally more because of the post-COVID kind of environment where people couldn't leave the country for a couple of years, or it was very difficult. And that's not Southwest's kind of market. So if we get back to like just a normal pre-pandemic market where people are flying more domestically and they kind of get some of the overseas travel that they really wanted to get in out of the way, we could see that kind of shift back again. I think is a possibility. I mean, I'm not predicting it, but I just think it's these things kind of ebb and flow, and we could get the flow back potentially. So for a small position size, that's probably where I would aim. And then I would be really happy if I could get Ryanair cheap again. That would be the one I would want to own again the most. so that's kind of my feelings on all the airline stocks. And they're pretty difficult to invest in, honestly. You want to have confidence that they can come back, but usually they only get cheap when things are pretty bad. And they really are risky when you look at the history of all these airlines. Almost all of them, except Southwest, has gone bankrupt at one point or another. So, yeah. If you found this useful, hit the subscribe button. If you have a request, put it down in the comments section, and I'll see everybody later. Bye.